Good day, student of LIT 302. I hope you all are doing great. This is going to be our first video lecture on LIT 302. So, I'm going to be starting all over again. I will be starting from scratch. So, as I move on, I want you to pay attention to me as I'm going to be explaining in points, and I want you to jot down points that you find understandable and you find helpful as I continue. So, for the case of this lecture, I'm going to split today's lecture into two parts. The first part is what brought about the modern period of literature. What brought about the modern period of literature. Then number two, the second part is what are the features or the characteristics of the modern period of literature. Now, this class is very important, and the reason is that whatever we learn in this class is what we are going to be needing by the time we begin to analyze the recommended text that you were given by your lecturers. The poetry part, the prose, and the dramatic text under this particular period of literature, the modern period of literature. So, I want you to give this video all your attention. Do you understand that? So let's begin. The modern period of literature. Now, what is the duration of this period? The modern period of duration spans from 1900 to 1945. Take note of that. 1900 to 1945. And it came immediately after the Victorian era. Are you getting that? Now, before the modern period of literature, the world was at peace. There was orderliness. Things were going smoothly. There was hope. In fact, people believed that the society was improving and that science was really helping things work out. But all of a sudden, there was a drastic change. And the change was not positive, it was a negative change in the society. The society that was peaceful became chaotic. There was war, there was problem. Are you getting that? So, it was this change, this societal change, that brought about modernism. In fact, in literature on its own, modernism is concerned is regarded as a movement. It's a literary movement. Okay, it's a literary movement that sought to break away from traditional or conventional forms of writing. I will explain that. Like I said, that modernism is a literary movement that sought to the breaking away from traditional and conventional forms of writing to seeking a new form of writing, a new form of expression. Now, what I'm trying to explain here is that before the modern period of literature, there was a traditional form of writing. In the Renaissance period, the Neoclassical period, the Medieval period, the Victorian era, there are rules that are followed when writers want to write, be it poetry, prose, or drama. There are conventional ways of writing. But when the modern period sets in, writers began to think in another different way. And what brought about that way of thinking? It was the society as at that time. You know, there was two prominent world wars, World War One and World War Two. During the World War, everywhere was chaotic. Peace was found wanting in the society throughout the universe. There was war, there was problem, there was destruction of lives and properties. There was political instability. The world was considered to be broken. Many people died. There was bloodshed. The whole universe turned upside down. There was no joy. There was no happiness. There was no reason to live. People started questioning the meaningness of life. People started questioning the purpose of life. People started questioning religious beliefs. Are you getting it? So the world was considered broken and disconnected. So modern writer now thought that the conventional way of writing before the world become chaotic, the rules and regulations that are followed, the patterns of writing before this chaotic period cannot reflect the situation we have at hand then. Are you getting it? The forms of writing, the patterns followed, the rules that are strictly followed cannot reflect the society of that time when there was chaos. It means that the world become chaotic, the world become disconnected. So they believe that literature too should reflect that environment. And that was why the writers of that time, the modernist writers, when they write, when you read their poems, you read their novels, when you read their dramatic text, you are going to sense this connection in their writings. We are still coming to all of that. I'm still going to explain each of that. So, I'm just trying to give you an introduction now into the modernist the modernist literature. That it is breaking away from the conventional, the traditional ways of writing, looking for a new style to express ourselves. Now, what exactly led to the modern period of literature? Number one, World 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 War One, World War One, World War, the first one that began 1914 and ended 1918, from 1914 to 1918. This period, millions of people died. There was bombing, there was bloodshed, lives and properties were destroyed. People started doubting the government and civilization. People do not believe in government anymore. People do not believe in religion anymore. People started questioning the existence of God, the dominance of God over the universe. People were like, if truly God exists, why would He allow the world to be in such a chaotic state? People started asking, if God is benevolent, as the religious leaders claim, if God is good, why would He watch people, millions of people die? I never knew that that was just the beginning. Another war that is going to be more brutal than the one they have seen is coming. So people start not trusting their neighbors anymore. People were disappointed at humanity. People were disappointed at the cruelty that lives within human. You, as a human, killing your fellow human, bombing them, killing them, straining them to death, going into different houses then and killing people. So that one went against the belief that people had before the modern period. There was morality in the society. People believed that human beings are created by God to choose good over evil. But with the case of things where people are killing each other, where people are creating machines, okay, and that is one of the effects of science at that moment, because science had great effects on that period, the modern period. There were inventions, okay, there were inventions. People were creating helicopters, aircraft, machine guns, so many scientific inventions that are not used in a positive way then, but in a negative way to ruin each other, one another. Are you with me? So people were disappointed because what they thought of human was the opposite of what was happening at that time. People could not trust other people like them anymore. So people were lonely. People were isolated. They isolated themselves. So War, World War One is a major cataract, or should I say it's a major cause of the modernist period then. Number two is the World War Two, which began 1939 to 1945. People thought they had seen it all during the First World War, but they saw another destruction for the second time. They saw hunger because whenever there is war, definitely who is going to farm to produce, who is going to work to go and get something to. There was destruction, there was killings, there was hunger. People were not happy, sadness everywhere. The number three is science and technology. Science and technology played a very great role in the modern era. You know, it was a time that people were, scientific development came in, technological advancements. People started creating, inventing machines, guns that were used during the world wars. People started leaving the rural areas. They started coming to the cities. So the cities became crowded. Few people were left in the rural areas. Many people gathered at the urban areas. So there was isolation. Even those that were in the urban areas, they could not they could not see themselves. They don't have that sense of belonging. They don't have that sense. That's what we call alienation. I'm still coming there. Alienation and isolation. For those that are the rural areas, there was isolation. For those that moved from the villages to the cities, there was what? Alienation. I will still come back to explain that very well. I'm just still on what brought about the modern era of literature. Why did writers wrote the way they wrote during this period? They felt that the world has become disconnected. The world has become broken. The world has become fragmented. So, the response to that environment at that time was what? Literature also becoming broken. Literature also becoming fragmented. And by the time we start going through the text that you were given by your lecturers, you realize that, yes, it is true. If you have read The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats, you realize that the narrative in that poem is not connected. Also, what's it called? What's his name? The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. You realize that the message in that poem is not connected. It is disconnected. Why? It is just to show the universe at that time. So the modernist literature is a response to the world at that time. What the world has become, it also affected literature. Remember that we do say that literature mirrors reality, right? So let's move on. So I've given you three causes of the modernist era. What brought about modernism? Number one is what? The World War One. Number two is the World War Two, the outbreak of war for the second time. Then science and technology also did what? Also partook. It had great negative effect on people and the society at that time. Now, what are the features and characteristics of the modern literature? What are the features and characteristics of the modern literature? Number one, breaking of rules or the rejection of tradition. I already said it in the first part that the modernist writer felt that there is need to stop writing the way writers wrote before the world become chaotic. New things has begun happening in the universe. There's war, there's chaos. The world has started, the world has been disconnected. So there is need to begin a new form of writing system that is going to reflect the situation of things at that time. So I'm going to give you examples of some of the literary rules, literary patterns that were actually what? Ignored or rejected by the modernist writers. Number one, there was breaking of traditional plot structure. Breaking of the traditional plot structure. What do I mean by that? Before the modernist era, writers write from the beginning to the middle to the end. That's the conventional way of writing stories, right? But during the modern period of literature, many modernist writers would not begin stories from the beginning. Okay? They would begin stories from the middle to the end to the beginning. Sometimes from the middle to the beginning to the end. In such a way that the plot is not going to be connected. In such a way that it is the readers that is given that task of joining meaning together in their writings. For those of you that you have read the recommended text given to you by your lecturers, probably The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot or Waiting for Godot, you are going to testify to this that I'm saying. That there is a feature of modernist writing that is called, what is it called? Open-endedness or ambiguity. Do you get it? For modernist, most of modernist literatures, you do not understand straightforward what the writer is talking about. And that is the goal. The goal is to make that piece of work not easily understood by you, the reader. Why? Because people do not understand the word as at that time. So if people cannot understand the word, people should not easily understand the literature that are written at that time too. Like I said, the literature of that time is reflecting the word of that time. Are we together? So the plot structure became totally different from what we have before the modernist period. Do you get it? Now, from what I have here, they started stories in the middle, they jump between past and present, they left endings unresolved. When they write their books, their stories, whether it's a novel, their drama text, their poetry, they don't end their writings in a way that it finalizes. The ending is usually open-ended. After you are done reading their work, you'll be like, eh? So, what's now the conclusion? What's now the conclusion? You are going to be left asking questions because at that time too, people kept asking questions. What is the meaning of life? What is even the purpose of life? How can I fit into the society? What has the world become? What is going on? So people were asking questions at that time. So when you read their works too, you ask yourself questions. You'll be like, so what is this guy trying to say in this novel? What is he trying to say in this poem? Okay, so what's now the, is there hope? You'll be like, so they left their endings unresolved. The scenes are not disconnected. Then the plots are also broken. Unlike how literature was written before this period, where you read a poem and you can easily, you can interpret what the poem, in as much you have an idea of poetic techniques, you have an idea of figure of speech, right? You can easily analyze what a poet has written in his poem. You can understand novels, you can understand dramatic texts. But during this time, it is not like that. Number two, breaking poetic rules. Breaking poetic rules. I will start from here in the next video. See you.